I just do my work. How's this work? Okay.
Hey folks, good morning. This is the Azure Stack team.
Is it?
Yeah,
it says
meeting
it's
on
now. It's slowly trickling in.
Yeah, it has a All right.
Good morning, folks. This is the Azure Stack team. So this is the first time we are doing it, so we might have a few technical glitches, but just want to make sure that all of you can hear and see us. If you can, just type something in the IM window, or just say hi to us.
Should check it out. That's Daniel Thomas. Justin. This person's Slaughterbolt.
Yes.
Yep. That's Eric.
All right. So. That's great. So maybe we'll give it a few more minutes, and before we get started, so folks can join us. Meanwhile, if you have any questions on who we are in the room, we'd be happy to take those questions and answer. I can start. I'm Vijay Tiwari. I work on the Azure Stack team, specifically focused on two aspects of Azure Stack. One is sort of the hardware ecosystem for Azure Stack, and the second is all the software that we're developing, which allows customers to actually operate Azure Stack in their data center. Then we'll start.
Yeah, I'm Alfredo Pisserani. I'm also on the Azure Stack team. I work on commerce enablement, so the usage reporting features, subscriptions, plans, offers, and those kind of things.
Hi, all, I'm Daniel Savage. I work on the Azure Stack team. I'm helping drive the operational scenarios for Azure Stack.
Hello, everyone. Besides testing the audio, as you can see, I work on the Azure Stack team as well, and I own the development experience and all the features and capabilities that allow Azure Stack to be a great platform for development of hybrid and modern applications.
And your name?
Oh yeah, my name. That's very important. Oh well, if you like this session, my name is Ricardo. If you don't like this session, my name is
Ricardo.
Hi, my name is Andre. I'm on the Azure Stack team, and I work on compute scenarios and open source / Linux-based developer stuff.
Hello, I'm Charlie Satterfield, Program Manager for the Azure Stack monitoring solution for the admin infrastructure.
Hey everyone, my name is Steve Lawson. I'm a content developer, so a little bit of a different track there. The team I'm on derives the content and documentation experience around Azure Stack. So any of this great stuff you see on docs.microsoft.com, that's the work we drive.
Charles Joy, Program Manager, Azure Stack. Terrible at introducing myself.
Matt McGlynn, Program Manager with Azure Stack as well. Worked on some of the hybrid developer scenarios and some good stuff.
Hey, I'm Ashika. I'm a PM intern on the Azure Stack team this summer, and I'm working on integrating Azure Stack with
I'm Amy, also a PM intern on Azure Stack, working on telemetry correlation.
I'm Rose, also a PM intern on Azure Stack. I'm currently working on making better sense of usage data in Azure Stack.
Cool. Scott Napolitan, I'm a Program Manager on Azure Stack, in charge of networking.
Right. Should we get started?
Yeah, whatever.
So we thought we'd just start a little bit about just talking about what Azure Stack is and where we are in the landscape of things. First of all, I'm hopeful that you all actually saw all the launch announcements of Azure Stack on July 10th. We are incredibly happy and proud and relieved in some sense to make sure that we've got the product out of the door. Getting a V1 out of the door is always challenging, and Azure Stack certainly has its share of challenges. But it's been a really fun ride getting the project to you, and we've had some amazing collaboration with a whole bunch of our customers who helped us refine the product, getting us to this point. So what we announced effectively on July 10th was the fact that the Azure Stack Development Kit, which is a single node instance of Azure Stack that you can use to experiment, prototype, developer applications with, is available for you to download now. We've gone through 3 different technical previews, and we've released what normally you would call as version 1.0, but that's not normally how you would address something like in the cloud space, because we're going to continue to release instances of the Azure Stack Development Kit as and when we have new capabilities. So you have this available. We have a hardware spec available for you. You need to have that hardware. You download the software and you can install, Azure Stack Development Kit on that box and get to experience Azure in a box. It's a pretty cool, concept actually, to think that we've been able to shrink the concept of a cloud onto a single physical machine for you to be able to prototype and experiment with. In addition, we also announced sort of how you would be able to get production environments for Azure Stack going. And we've been working really closely with our hardware partners, Dell, EMC, HPE, and Lenovo, who are our launch partners. They announced the availability of their solutions. You can actually order solutions from them as we speak. And the first set of systems will start shipping in the month of September. And we're going to use between now and September to sort of do the final bits of validation, make sure that all the hardware and software integration works correctly, and we'll get the systems out in the month of September. And then, obviously we announced all the details around pricing and licensing. I know a lot of you are excited about it, and Alfredo has done a ton of work to make sure that, we drive clarity and sort of, provide the details about you to be able to, go through that. At a very high level, I would articulate that it's all about Azure, and therefore, just like Azure or just like any other cloud, the modeling from a business perspective is based on consumption. That means you only pay when you consume. So if you just deploy Azure Stack and don't deploy any tenant workloads or virtual machines or anything of that sort, you don't pay anything. It's only when you actually start deploying virtual machines or any other PaaS services, then do you start paying based on a consumption basis, meaning that you pay for as long as that particular workload is operational. You shut it down, and the meters stop running, and you stop getting a bill. So pretty fascinating stuff, and pretty innovative stuff in the sense that this is also the first time for customers like you, where you can actually get Windows Server on a consumption basis. The only way you could get that previously was if you went to a cloud like Azure, you would be able to get Windows Server on a consumption basis. But now, for the first time in the history of Microsoft, you actually can, on premises, actually use Windows Server on a consumption-based model. So, some pretty radical thinking, and we've broken through many such glass ceilings in the development of this product. And I'm sure we'll break a lot more by the time we get through the first year of this product. I think it's important to recognize, what is sort of our design point for Azure Stack and what it is not. As we talk to customers, who've been adopting Azure in droves, we see the need for customers to actually have environments where, or rather they have reasons to be able to deploy cloud-borne applications, but they can't deploy it in the cloud for reasons that where they're deploying these applications need to be disconnected from the internet or need to be disconnected from the network. A classical example of this would be something like a cruise line or literally a submarine, where you have the desire or the need to actually run these modern style applications, but obviously due to bandwidth constraints or literally sometimes absolutely no connectivity, you cannot have you cannot run the application in the public cloud. So at that point of time, having Azure Stack on the ship or submarine would be a great way to be able to use cloud style applications, but still be able to benefit from, or rather be able to benefit from the cloud operational model while having that in your environment. A second example we see quite often is, today lots of countries have actually passed laws about the constraints about where data for their citizens can actually live, for example. And in order to sort of satisfy that, you need to make sure that the physical systems where your data is residing need to be within the confines of a particular geographical domain. And obviously, Azure, we've done a great job of having over 40 regions in the world, but there are very many more countries than just the 40 that we are in today. And while many customers, across borders access Azure, if they are in an environment where they have laws which sort of dictate how these applications need to be deployed in a particular geography, that's where Azure Stack will help, because you can actually deploy an instance in that geography, benefit from the cloud model, and still not be required to go to Azure. And a third example would be, you have lots of data that is encapsulated in sort of mainframes and AIX systems, and you want to basically provide a cloud front end so that mobile applications and other cloud style applications can benefit from this data. Now, one approach we offer in Azure is where you can actually use something like Express Route, where you can actually have your data in your own data center, have a fast connection into Azure, and you can put the cloud end of that application in Azure. But sometimes that does not work for customers, and you literally want a high bandwidth, low latency connection between the cloud application and the backend systems. In which case, having an Azure Stack instance literally co-located with these large systems would be a great way to be able to provide a modern head on some of these heritage systems, which have tremendous amounts of data and value for the organizations. So these are sort of the primary use cases that we see for Azure Stack. And I sort of want to address the elephant in the room, where lots of customers ask us about, well, I've got like a farm of 30,000 virtual machines, and I want to take all of those 30,000 virtual machines and run them on top of Azure Stack. Now, off the top of the head, I'll tell you that Azure Stack obviously supports a modern IaaS platform, and that's the heart of Azure, and it's the heart of Azure Stack as well. But it's not really been defined or designed to be able to say, all right, I'll take 20,000 virtual machines and then forklift them and run on top of Azure Stack. You'd be much better off continuing to run those applications in your existing environment. But if you're sort of modernizing a class or subset of those applications, and they happen to use some aspects of IaaS and some aspects of PaaS, sure, by all means, bring those applications on top of Azure Stack. So that's the way we look at it. But again, we are developing a product based on all the feedback and knowledge that we've gained from US customers. And it is dialogues such as these where we can get more feedback and understand from you how you would want to use Azure Stack. And then we can obviously go back and continue to refine the product. The last thing I want to share is sort of where we are in terms of the number of systems that we sort of support today. I talked about our hardware partners, HP, Dell, and Lenovo. So one of the innovative things I would say about Azure Stack is how we've actually worked with scale. And I use the term very deliberately because when we say scale, normally people think about how do I go bigger and bigger. In Azure Stack, the biggest challenge for us was not how to go bigger. The biggest challenge for us was how to go small, because Azure is designed to work at really massive scales. As an example, an Azure cluster today is about 1,000 physical servers. Now imagine saying what runs on many such clusters and then trying to bring it to US customers so that we don't have to force you to buy 1,000 physical servers. And we are really, really happy with the work we've been able to do, which allows US customers to be able to run Azure Stack on as small a configuration as 4 physical servers. So that's the smallest production starting point of Azure Stack, which is 4 physical servers plus 3 physical switches. And then we have a small server which handles the hardware lifecycle management called HLH. And then in the version that we just are releasing right now, you'll be able to run anywhere from 4 physical servers to up to 12 physical servers. And the actual definition of these servers is something that you can work with your hardware partners with, where you can pick a variety of different CPU SKUs. You can pick anywhere from 256 gigabytes of memory to 768 gigabytes of memory, and a variety of different storage topologies, with all flash configurations or a combination of flash and disk sizes can be varied as well. And so you have a lot of flexibility in sort of picking the right amount of system or the right topology of the systems based on your application's needs. So I'd like to stop here and sort of give you all an opportunity to sort of ask questions or anything else that you might have at this point of time. And I know I talk fast, but that is a bug that I've not been able to fix for a long time. So I really apologize for that.
We are working on an update for that. Let's see if we can.
Over the 15 years, but hopefully some fixes.
There's no question.
Charles, you want to give us a overview of the development kit?
Sure. So as you've probably been on this journey, especially if you're on this call or Hangout, since January 2016, the OneNode, previously POC, has been rebranded to Azure Stack Development Kit, ASDK. And it's the same concept, actually, we just renamed it and just added more stuff in it and produced a newer build. And in this, since the TP2-ish timeframe, we've been adding more and more features, especially like the PaaS stuff for SQLRP, MySQLRP app service. In the TP3 timeframe, we added the ability for functions. And during that time, we had some a lot of changes. So the Cloud Builder VHD that you download might have been 50 gig one time, and now actually with this release it was 25. So you can get, it's faster to download with that. We've optimized the space it uses and the RAM that the VMs take up. We've added some new VMs, we've taken some VMs away. So if you've been on this journey, you've seen a lot of changes, and a lot of those changes were attributed to you and your feedback. But in the current version, what we just released this week, I'm happy to say, because it wasn't like this the TP2, TP3 timeframe, is that on a low end or min spec hardware, you can actually get some stuff on there that you may have not on TP3, which means like app service with functions. So I'm actually, if you've watched on Twitter, I'm working on a video that I'll publish sometime this morning now, since I can't do it right this second, end-to-end flow for app service plus functions on end-spec hardware. And I go through registering the Microsoft.Azure Stack resource provider in Azure in your Azure subscription, through registration and download of images and extensions, through the install of the entire thing and using it. So I'll post that later today. But that's just showing some of the capabilities you can do, even if you have min-spec hardware. Now, we put, as Vijay said, we have the hardware available, the specs available, and we have minimum, which is 96 gig of RAM, and that's primarily the biggest thing that hinders folks as far as capacity is concerned, but storage would be a concern as well. All the way up to some folks have very, very powerful machines that have far more RAM than I do in my validation environments, and you could do lots and lots more things. And then we start looking at what can you really do with a OneNode, and how many VMs can you get on there? What kind of applications or platforms even can you get on a OneNode to start validating for your multi-node or even Azure deployments and environments. So ASDK, or Azure Stack Development Kit, is really there to kick the tires. It's so you can bring your interest and combine it with actual product for Azure Stack. On something that you could pull together yourself, and then you can really get an idea of whether or not the solution is going to work for you, and you maybe get interested in some things that you didn't know were there. So there's lots more to it. The documentation right now is focused on the OneNode, the ASDK. So if you have questions, go search and look in the documentations articles, because they're fantastic. There's lots of great content in there. So and we'll be referencing those throughout the day and things, or throughout the time that we're on, and of course throughout the day and days that we interact with you on the social medias.
And there was a question just come up, so Yannick, thanks for asking, but they answered in the chat. So
yeah, I think Yannick, you had asked a question about whether we support ASDK in a nested virtualization environment. The short answer is no, we don't. But we do know people who actually tried and got it to work. This is obviously something that we continue to sort of explore for the future. But right now we don't officially support running ASDK in a nested virtualization environment. Thanks for the question.
All right. So one thing I like to spend some time and talk about is the possibilities that we have to design, develop, and implement modern applications using Azure Stack. There is several efforts we've been working with different partner teams in Microsoft to make sure that the development experience that you have today working against Azure is very consistent in Azure Stack. So I like to highlight a few things. So first of all, App Service is a great place for you to start looking at modern application development. You can create, API apps. You can create a multitude of mobile and web apps. Also, App Service provides serverless computing through functions. So that's definitely, a place that you can look at making it easy for you to develop modern applications with the PaaS services that App Services provides. Now, another important thing is the development experience. And on that front, I like to highlight a few of very important efforts we had engaged with our partner teams inside Microsoft, and which are available today with the Azure Stack Development Kit. So if you go ahead and download, for instance, Visual Studio 2017 Update 3, you have everything you need there to connect to Azure Stack using Cloud Explorer. You can go ahead and if you create, for instance, a NAM project, you will be prompted. You have the option to browse the quick start samples. That will also take you to the Azure Stack quick start samples with a bunch of quick starts that are available and curated for Azure Stack. All the development experience with ARM templates. That's all available inside Visual Studio, as it is if you are targeting Azure. Now, deployment, the same thing. You can right-click on a project and just go ahead and select deploy. And then at that point in time, you can target both Azure and Azure Stack. Same thing with app service projects. You can design and develop your web project, your API project, and then build it, right-click, deploy, and then choose again Azure or Azure Stack, and the experience is the same. The other thing that is important to highlight is when you are managing your resources in Azure Stack, if you use PowerShell, use the Azure PowerShell. We recently implemented the Azure PowerShell Bootstrapper module, which basically implements the concept of profiles, and then with the Bootstrapper module, you are able to switch profiles that target the different Azure and Azure Stack environments. So that's a very handy feature of PowerShell. And actually, a month or so ago, there was a Hangout specifically on Bootstrapper hosted by the PowerShell team. I'll post a link to this video later. Also, CLI 2.0. If you download CLI 2.0, you have full support for Azure Stack as well, same way as you do with Azure. Also, when we talk about developing apps, one thing is writing your code, and either if you choose to use Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code or any other development environment. So that's one thing, writing your code. But the other thing is if you are targeting Azure Stack, it's very likely that you are that either you already have your CI/CD pipeline, or you are working on implementing a CI/CD pipeline. And the beauty is that if you use TFS on-premise, if you use Visual Studio Online for your CI/CD pipeline, if you use things like Jenkins or Travis, all those CI/CD pipeline frameworks, you can consume Azure Stack resources as you do with Azure. And what that allows you to do is really implement a pipeline that targets the cloud, either the public cloud or Azure Stack, when you need it, right? And then the cloud, and where you are placing your resources, it becomes a matter of a configuration. You change endpoints. You either point to the Azure public endpoints or your Azure Stack endpoints, but your CI/CD pipeline is the same. And that I think that is really the power of Azure Stack, which is not only allow you to design and develop in a consistent way, but also maintain, deploy and manage the entire life cycle, either in Azure Stack or in Azure in the same manner. And we have hit going over some of the patterns that we actually designed. So in the past few months, myself and the rest of the team, we had met with several customers to discuss how they would use Azure Stack to develop their applications. And out of that work, it came a set of patterns, and those patterns, you see those patterns being surfaced in different forms of artifacts. As of today, for example, if you go to our documentation, you see we do have the first pattern, which is a CI/CD pattern, implemented and available. So it's a set of documentation you can follow, and you can set up that infrastructure on your own. And as time goes, we will have more of those patterns lining up. So I think to summarize, the power of Azure Stack is allow you to design, develop, deploy, and manage your applications in the same way you choose Azure or Azure Stack. And the location, Azure or Azure Stack, it becomes pretty much a configuration of your CI/CD pipeline because there is consistency between the artifacts. So that's a high-level overview of the development experience. Not sure, do we have any questions, Daniel?
No, not currently.
No. All right. With that said, I talk about CI/CD pipeline and patterns, and I would actually leave Heath to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ricardo. So I guess, like I did in the introductions, I'm Heath Lawson, right on a part of a team that drives the content strategy and overall content that you'll see out of docs.microsoft.com for Azure Stack. And so, I think there's some great things just to kind of build on there. So, BJ talked around kind of the use cases for Azure Stack. We look at how people use Azure and Azure Stack potentially together. We talk about the great application experience that's out there. Ricardo's talked around the dev tools and everything else that happens there. And it's been really great to be able to put out this document, I think, that kind of captures both those and talks about a hybrid use case between the two. And kind of this foundational idea that we back up with it. So real quick, Ricardo's going to share out a slide here just to kind of talk through this. And we've got some great documentation that backs this up. I'll point you all out here in just a second. But the idea here is that a hybrid CI/CD pipeline allows me to take my application and really deploy it to the cloud that makes most sense or that allows me to do what I need to do for that app. And so if we look at it here really at a pretty high level, you can see, the ability for a hybrid CI/CD pipeline really at its core is to be able to deploy your application across an on-premise environment and maybe the public cloud. And so kind of our promise to you is really just being able to change that deployment location without having to change your tooling or your code or anything like that to make it work. And in this case, we've centered on VSTS in this case. It could definitely be, the Jenkins of the world. It could be any CI/CD tool, because if it works with Azure, I think that's a great way to call it that consistency, is that it'll probably work with Azure Stack. So as we go forward, maybe Ricardo, if we can, just real quick, I'll cut over to that doc, and we'll walk through this scenario real quick. For anyone that wants to check this out, there is a short link, aka.ms/hybrid CI/CD. It'll take you straight here. But this is the first kind of pattern that we've talked around here. Truly foundational of folks that want to develop across clouds. It's the ability to deploy your app, to Azure and Azure Stack. So this document is a quick walkthrough. It simulates a scenario that we've heard from a ton of customers. They want to use Azure as kind of their test, their QA area for workloads, but maybe they've got some compliance reasons or some other things that they need to keep that production data, that production application on-prem with Azure Stack. And so we've set that up this way.
So you'll see up there at the top, we call it out. Hey, we're going to kick off a new build anytime someone commits some new code to this repo. We're going to publish it out to Azure as kind of a QA environment. There, we're going to require some sign-off. Maybe someone's going to go out and do some validation testing, something of that nature. And then once that's happened, we'll go ahead and automatically deploy it out to, or release it out to Azure Stack. And so this guide walks you through that. You'll see there are some prereqs. It does take a little bit to kind of get going on that because we are talking around Azure and Azure Stack. You need an Azure subscription. You need an Azure Stack instance with app services that now sounds like we can run on you know, kind of min-spec hardware, which is really cool. You will need some VSTS and some tooling there. But then these steps are really prescriptive in walking you through kind of that first experience with a hybrid CI/CD pipeline. So as we go through this, you know, it is definitely kind of extensive, but it does kind of take you from that 0 to 60 and get you going pretty quick with a hybrid CI/CD pipeline. So super quick, I'll call out two things just around the Doc platform that you know, I think is really powerful, and I think it really it means a lot to us. First, you know, you look down there in that where Ricardo's at. That box, I know it's small and it's kind of out of the way, but understand that that box does drive a huge amount of just feedback for us. It's one of those really great listening posts for us. If you click yes on that or no, it can pop up a box that says, hey, maybe provide some feedback. And that feedback is just huge for us. That feedback that comes in through the documentation, I'm here to tell you, makes its way to the product. We talk about this every day in the interactions we have. So it's really important. The second thing that I'd love to call out and just kind of remind folks of, and maybe enlighten folks if they haven't seen this before, up in the upper right there, you'll see a button that says edit. One of the great things around the docs.microsoft.com platform is just that community editing and those community submissions. So if you see stuff in the Azure Stack docs, you go, hey, maybe I can do that better, or maybe I should add this. We love those type of submissions and highly, you know, we just welcome them because they're super powerful for everybody involved. We love them and look forward to more content submissions from that front. So then I'll hand it back over, Ricardo. Thanks for the opportunity to chat with folks.
All right, thanks, Heath, that was great. So let's see if we have any other questions. Okay, no questions so far.
I can go.
You next, Daniel.
Yeah, I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes talking about the cloud operator, and as you start thinking about getting to deploying and looking after Azure Stack, the things that you need to start thinking about. The first thing I want to state is really that you got to start thinking a little differently. Azure Stack as a cloud model and how you're going to approach operating it is going to be different. If you're approaching it thinking about you're going to admin a virtualization host, I think you're approaching it the wrong way. As we talked about how Azure Stack will be delivered as an integrated solution for delivering value to cloud services, the cloud operator role needs to kind of change in that context as well. So let me just kind of cover some of the aspects of what I want to make sure you're thinking about, and we can talk about kind of how and where you can learn more about this. So we're defining what's called the cloud operator role. This is a kind of an adjunct to what Azure has defined as a cloud administrator. So the cloud administrator in Azure is someone who manages the tenant workloads that run within a subscription. The cloud operator role will be something that will be specific to Azure Stack, and we will provide documentation, training, and kind of other artifacts that let you kind of understand what it means to be a cloud operator. But it kind of breaks down across kind of three main kind of topics. First of all is Azure Stack fundamentals. And Azure Stack fundamentals are really aligned with kind of Azure fundamentals as well. You really need to understand what ARM is. You need to understand about your resource providers that we provide in their compute network storage. You also need to start thinking about, okay, my job isn't just about running the system, it's about providing value to the services for my developers to use. So understand what it means, the personas that are going to be using it, the plans and offers, the security and identity, what the architecture of the system is, like the regions, how we're going to do these things. Marketplace, you know, what are role-based access control. So understanding those fundamentals are things you can start doing now. The Azure Stack development kit's available, and you can start playing with this administration experience and understand what it means to do it. Then you get into planning, deployment, and configuration. Now, obviously, systems are live, they will be deployed kind of per the OEMs, but you need to understand how that system is going to integrate within your data center. A large part of the work you'll do and running Azure Stack is making sure it plugs into your existing processes. So that means making sure that your identity system is integrated correctly, your network's integrated correctly. How are you going to integrate things like with your monitoring system for your ticketing solutions? I mean, Azure Stack has to work in the context of your data center, and we provide information and documentation around how you do these things. And then the third main topic is the operations itself. We've done a lot of work in our team to kind of make sure we're kind of simplifying the concepts and what we make available to you on how you actually operate Azure Stack. So the things that you're going to have to do, you're obviously going to have to use our monitoring system. Okay, we're going to have a very kind of task-based system of kind of how we're driving you to action for kind of how you monitor and remediate the system. How are you going to update the system? How are you going to understand the security of how the system works? Okay, so all those things in the operations are kind of there. So they're the three main aspects of the cloud operator role that you need to start thinking about. Now, just as a kind of plug for some up and coming things, we have a series of blogs that will come out kind of in the run up to Ignite, which will kind of highlight these key areas of what it means to operate Azure Stack. And then the second plug is Ignite itself. We have a lot of sessions coming up Ignite with a large focus on kind of really what it means if you're an admin right now and you're looking at Azure Stack and you're wanting to skill up on that. Ignite will be the place that we will come and we will cover all those topics that what I've just discussed. Questions on that?
All right. So one couple of things, folks. We do have 28 folks online, but only a few had actually logged on with a Hangout account. So there's no way we can know who you are. So here's the deal. What I would do by the end of this Hangout, I will just print screen the YouTube page. I will have your account name there. So if you send me a message through my YouTube channel, I will send you a Azure Stack sticker. But I need to know who you are. So for those, maybe 15 or 17 folks that are logging on without an account, I don't know who you are. I cannot send you a sticker. So if you want a sticker, you ping me through my channel. But here's the deal. I need to see you log it on before we end up this session. All right. Right now we have how many people? 28. Yeah, but how many on the maybe like I don't know 3 or 4 on the chat window that we know? All right. Yeah, but I can see by the comments. So anyway, if you want a sticker, put a comment so I know who you are and send me a message on my channel. All right. With that said, one more thing, okay?
Yeah, one more thing that so we're going to be posting a survey below this video, which is this team spends a lot of time talking to customers, gathering your feedback. This product evolves with your input. There'll be a survey posted below this later today for you to sign up to be part of those conversations. Really, that sign up allows you to kind of be on our call schedule. We'll call you up with various topics we want to talk about, and we really, really appreciate your feedback. And if you could do that, that would be great.
And we are not finished yet. We have Alfredo coming, but before that, another thing. This is the first Hangout. We plan to do this more often. So if you like this, make sure you log on to this with your account so we know who you are. With all that said, Alfredo.
Thank you. So we've been talking about the ASDK, what used to be called the POC primarily today, this great Azure-like cloud that you can install on your servers, run in your basement. So you may be wondering, how much does it cost, this Azure cloud that I can have on my server? Guess, $1,000, 10,000, $1 million? How much is it worth to you? Well, it's not $1 million, it's not 10,000, it's not 1,000, it is actually free. Yeah, so seriously, the ASDK is free to you to download. There is no charge for using it, even now that we've reached the general availability. It's not supported in production, so it's for testing only, and that's why any usage of it is free. You may another edition of Azure Stack and delivered together with our OEM partners. That one is not going to be free. That one is supported in production. It's the real work tool, and but the prices are again I think very interesting there as well. As Vijay mentioned, what we've done there is we've made the pricing model consistent with what you find in Azure. So there's actually no upfront charge for the software before you install it. In the multi-node edition, there are charges for using virtual machines. As Vijay mentioned, you can also rent Windows Server by the hour. The charges that you find there are going to be lower than the prices for similar virtual machines in Azure. And the reason is that in Azure, of course, you get the hardware, you get the power, you get the manpower to deploy the system and operate it. On Azure Stack, you need to provide all those ingredients, and so obviously the price of what you provide is lower. Let's see. So again, I guess the question at that point is how does Microsoft actually find out about the usage so that we can charge you based on the actual usage? Azure Stack comes with the infrastructure to report usage that occurs on the platform. The resource providers, as they provide resources to users, track the usage, how much of the resource was used, and by which subscriptions. This information is forwarded to Azure and is processed through Azure Commerce. So you see it in your Azure subscription in the same way as you would see your public Azure usage. And again, this is only for the multi-node fully supported edition. There are no charges for the one node ASDK. However, you can choose to report your usage of the ASDK and see how this process works in practice. You can see the usage reported against your Azure subscription, but usage on the ASDK is always going to have a unit price of $0. So you will see that you have run a certain number of machines in your testing and consumed a certain amount of storage. But the price that Microsoft charges you for that is $0. So hopefully you can take advantage of this, see how it works, and build up confidence in it.
All right. So I guess we went through the plan program here. At this point, if there are any questions, we will take those questions. If not, I really, on behalf of the team, want to say a huge thanks for you guys for joining us. You can expect more Hangouts in the future. Twitter will be the medium that will be letting you know about those Hangouts. Will be recorded and available on this channel, so you can come back later.
We can just hang out for a few more minutes in case you have a question.
And I think one thing to me it's very exciting. This team is very customer centric. You can see we come and talk with you. So I think that's one of the most exciting things is having this open channel of communication. We really want to know how you are going to use our product. The things we have to improve. So of communication is open. We are very active on Twitter and other media. So stay tuned.
So how many of you folks who are online have been able to get their ASDK installed already.
No answer to that?
Well, that includes all of us here. That is not an excuse.
Oh, that's good. Someone just returned from vacation,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's why. All right, that was a good. But please now go ahead and download Azure Stack.
Also, you can sometimes just take a vacation and deploy Azure Stack. Yeah, that works.
Okay. So thank you for everyone that joined us this morning. Thank you for the team. Thanks guys for joining us, and we see you next time.
Yeah, and if you have any specific topics before we, if you have any specific topics that you would like us to address, please, tweet or whatever way you want to get in touch with us. Many ways to get in touch with us, but just ask us about what specifically you want to see us do in these Hangouts, and we love to do that. Again, this is the first time we've done it, so this is a learning exercise for us as well. We want to make sure that this is useful for all of you, and you have a way to directly communicate with us. So please let us know how you would like to use this time with us, and we want to see maybe get into regular cadence of doing this maybe at a month cadence or not or so. Just to let us know. We really appreciate the feedback.
Comments on this video, good way also for us to know what you think and what you want to see next. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for hanging out.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.